Stephen Hawking told us black holes destroy information forever. I spent 30 years proving him wrong and won that bet. Black holes don't erase the past. They preserve it in ways we're only beginning to understand. And if information is truly conserved, if the past never disappears, then the structure of spacetime itself might allow for something we thought was impossible. Time travel isn't just science fiction, it's a consequence of how black holes work. Let me show you why black holes are cosmic archives, and what that means for the nature of time. When a star collapses into a black hole, something extraordinary happens to spacetime. The curvature becomes so extreme that not even light can escape from within a boundary called the event horizon. Anything that crosses this horizon is trapped forever, falling inexorably toward the singularity at the center. For decades we thought this meant information was destroyed. Drop a book into a black hole and the information in that book seemed lost forever. The black hole has only three properties: mass, charge, and angular momentum. Everything else about what fell in, all the specific details, all the information, appeared to vanish. This created a crisis in theoretical physics because quantum mechanics says information cannot be destroyed. It's a fundamental principle called unitarity. The total information content of a closed system must be conserved. It can be scrambled, spread out, encoded in subtle correlations, but never erased. If black holes destroy information, then quantum mechanics breaks down. If quantum mechanics is right, then something must be wrong with our understanding of black holes. This tension became known as the black hole information paradox. In 1974, Stephen Hawking made the problem worse. He showed that black holes aren't completely black. They emit radiation due to quantum effects near the event horizon. This radiation is thermal, appearing to carry no information about what fell into the black hole. As the black hole radiates, it loses mass and eventually evaporates completely. When a black hole evaporates, where does the information go? Hawking argued it was simply destroyed. The radiation is random thermal noise. Nothing about the original matter that formed the black hole can be recovered from it. Information is lost. I disagreed. I argued that information must somehow be encoded in the Hawking radiation, even if we don't yet understand the mechanism. The radiation might look thermal, but it must contain subtle correlations that preserve all the information about what fell in. This wasn't just theoretical stubbornness. If information can be destroyed in black holes, then the predictability of physics breaks down. You could have two universes with identical pasts that diverge in their futures because information was lost in black holes. The laws of physics would become fundamentally random rather than deterministic. Stephen and I made a bet in 1997. We wagered an encyclopedia's worth of information on whether black holes preserve or destroy information. For years the debate continued. Theoretical arguments were made on both sides, but gradually the evidence accumulated in favor of information conservation. String theory and holography provided crucial insights. The holographic principle says that all the information in a volume of space can be encoded on the boundary of that volume. Applied to black holes, this means all the information that falls past the event horizon is somehow encoded on the horizon's surface. The horizon acts like a hologram, a two-dimensional surface that contains all the information about the three-dimensional interior. When the black hole radiates, the information leaks out through correlations in the Hawking radiation. It's scrambled almost beyond recognition, but it's there. By the early 2000s, most physicists agreed that information must be conserved. In 2004, Stephen conceded the bet. He accepted that black holes preserve information even though the detailed mechanism remained unclear. I received my prize, a baseball encyclopedia, the information content we had wagered, but conceding the bet didn't fully resolve the paradox. We still don't understand exactly how information escapes from black holes. The Hawking radiation appears thermal to any observer who doesn't have access to the complete quantum state. Extracting the information would require impossibly precise measurements of correlations between different photons in the radiation. So in practice, information that falls into a black hole is lost to us even if it's not fundamentally destroyed. We can't read the book that fell in by analyzing the radiation that comes out. The information is preserved but scrambled beyond recovery. Unless, and this is where things get interesting, unless you could somehow access the black hole's interior. If you fell into a black hole yourself, you would encounter all the information that fell in before you. From inside, the information isn't scrambled, it's right there. The problem is you can't send that information back out. Once you're inside the event horizon, all paths lead forward in time toward the singularity. There's no going back. The interior is causally disconnected from the exterior. Information can flow in but not out. Or so we thought. But the structure of spacetime inside rotating black holes is far stranger than simple collapse to a singularity. When a black hole spins, the geometry develops new features that might allow for time travel. A rotating black hole is described by the Kerr solution to Einstein's field equations. Unlike a non-rotating Schwarzschild black hole, the Kerr solution has an inner horizon in addition to the outer event horizon. Between these horizons is a region called the ergosphere, where spacetime is dragged along with the rotation. But even stranger things happen inside the inner horizon. The singularity is not a point, it's a ring. And the geometry allows for paths that loop back in time. These are called closed time-like curves. If you follow one, you could in principle return to your own past. This isn't science fiction speculation, it's a mathematical property of the exact solution to Einstein's equations for rotating black holes. The equations that describe gravity and spacetime permit time travel under specific circumstances, and black holes might be where those circumstances exist. The Kerr solution predicts that inside a rotating black hole, beyond the inner horizon, the structure of spacetime becomes exotic in ways that violate our usual causality. You could traverse a path through this region and emerge at an earlier time than when you entered. Now I need to be careful here. Just because the mathematics allows something doesn't mean it's physically realizable. There are good reasons to think the interior of a real rotating black hole is much more chaotic and unstable than the idealized Kerr solution suggests. When matter falls into a rotating black hole, it creates perturbations that build up near the inner horizon. These perturbations might destroy the exotic geometry before you could exploit it for time travel. The region where closed time-like curves exist might be quantum mechanically unstable, collapsing before anything can traverse it. This is still debated. We don't have a complete theory of quantum gravity to tell us what really happens inside black holes. General relativity alone permits time travel through rotating black holes. But general relativity breaks down at singularities and might break down at the inner horizon as well. What we can say is that the connection between black holes and time travel is deep. Both involve extreme curvature of spacetime, both push the boundaries of what general relativity allows, and both require us to think carefully about causality and information flow. Let me explain why information conservation and time travel are connected. If you could travel back in time, you could in principle access information from the past directly. You wouldn't need to preserve it through the normal flow of causation. You could just go back and look. But this creates paradoxes. If you travel back and change something, you alter the causal chain that led to your time travel in the first place. The classic grandfather paradox asks what happens if you go back and prevent your own birth. Do you cease to exist? Does the timeline branch? Does consistency prevent you from changing anything? Black holes might resolve this by preserving information in a way that makes time travel self-consistent. Everything that ever fell into a black hole is still there, encoded in the geometry and the quantum state of the radiation. The past isn't gone, it's archived. If you could access the black hole's interior, you would be accessing that archive. You wouldn't be changing the past, you'd be reading it the way you might read an old book. The information was always there. Time travel wouldn't create paradoxes because you're not altering events, just observing them from a different temporal perspective. This is speculative, but it points toward a deeper truth about time and information. In the block universe view that comes from relativity, all of spacetime exists at once. Past and future are equally real, just located at different temporal coordinates. Your entire life from birth to death is a four-dimensional structure, a world line through spacetime. If that's the correct picture, then time travel isn't about changing the past. The past is fixed, part of the eternal structure. Time travel would be about accessing different parts of that structure through exotic spacetime geometries that connect normally separated regions. Black holes create exactly these kinds of exotic geometries. The extreme curvature warps the relationship between space and time in radical ways. Near the event horizon, time slows down relative to distant observers. Inside the horizon, the roles of time and space swap. At the singularity or beyond the inner horizon, causality itself becomes negotiable. Now let me tell you about another connection between black holes and time that's even more fundamental. It involves the thermal properties of black holes and the arrow of time. When Hawking showed that black holes radiate, he found they have a temperature. The smaller the black hole, the hotter it is. The temperature depends inversely on the mass. As the black hole evaporates and loses mass, it gets hotter and radiates faster, eventually exploding in a final burst. Temperature is connected to entropy. the measure of disorder or information content. Bekenstein showed that black holes have entropy proportional to the area of their event horizon. A black hole contains enormous entropy, far more than an equivalent mass of ordinary matter. This entropy represents information. Specifically, it represents all the possible microstates, all the detailed configurations that could produce the same macroscopic black hole. The information about what fell in is encoded in these microstates. When the black hole evaporates, this information must go somewhere. It gets encoded in the subtle correlations in the Hawking radiation. The radiation appears thermal, maximally disordered, but hidden in the quantum correlations is all the information that went in. This preservation of information across the black hole's lifetime is what I argued for in my bet with Stephen, and it connects directly to the arrow of time. Entropy increases in the forward direction of time. This increase creates the distinction between past and future, the directionality we experience as times flow. If black holes destroyed information, they would allow entropy to decrease. You could hide low entropy information in a black hole and let it evaporate, leaving only high entropy thermal radiation. This would violate the second law of thermodynamics locally, creating a way to reverse time's arrow. But if information is conserved, if the correlations in the radiation preserve everything that fell in, then entropy never decreases. The second law holds. Time's arrow remains inviolate. Black holes preserve the fundamental directionality of time even as they warp its geometry. This is why the information paradox was so important. It wasn't just about black holes. It was about whether the laws of physics are consistent, whether time has an objective direction, whether the past is fixed or malleable. The resolution is that black holes remember everything, not in any accessible classical sense. The information is quantum mechanically encoded, scrambled, spread across the radiation in correlations too subtle to decode without complete knowledge of the quantum state. But it's there. The past is preserved. Nothing is lost. And this preservation is what keeps time coherent, what prevents causality paradoxes, what maintains the distinction between past and future. If black holes allow time travel through their interiors, that time travel must be self-consistent because all information is conserved. You can't change the past because the past is part of the fixed structure of spacetime, preserved in the quantum state of black holes and their radiation. This brings me to a final thought about what black holes teach us about time. We think of time as something that flows, carrying us from past to future, but this might be an illusion of perspective. Time might be more like space, a dimension we move through but that exists in its entirety. Black holes reveal this structure. They show us regions where time behaves strangely, where it slows down or stops or potentially loops back on itself. They preserve information across cosmic timescales, maintaining a record of everything that ever fell in. In this sense, black holes are the universe's memory. They archive the past in their event horizons. They encode information in their quantum states. They maintain causality and consistency by preserving everything. And if we could somehow access that memory, if we could read the information encoded in a black hole's horizon or radiation, we would be accessing the past directly, not changing it, not traveling to it in the conventional sense, but observing it through the archive that black holes maintain. This is profoundly different from science fiction time travel. You're not going back to kill your grandfather. You're reading the cosmic record, accessing information that was always there, preserved by the laws of physics in the most extreme objects in the universe. Whether practical time travel is possible, whether we could ever exploit the exotic geometries inside rotating black holes, remains unknown. The engineering challenges are absurd. The quantum instabilities might make it impossible. We don't have the physics worked out to say definitively. But what we do know is that black holes preserve information. They remember everything. And that preservation is what makes time coherent, causality consistent, the past fixed. Black holes are not cosmic garbage disposals. They're cosmic libraries, storing everything that ever fell in, maintaining the record of history in their quantum states. I spent 3 decades proving this against Stephen's skepticism, and in the end the mathematics and physics demanded it. Information cannot be destroyed, black holes cannot erase the past. Time has a structure that persists, that maintains itself even through the most extreme events in the cosmos. That's the real lesson of the information paradox. Not that we can build time machines, though perhaps we can't rule it out, but that time itself is more robust, more structured, more carefully preserved than we imagined. The universe keeps records, and black holes are where those records are stored.